Since the release of the GTX 970 in September 2014, this card has been praised as the king of 1080p gaming. So the question is, with the RX 480 released, is this the end of its reign? So today, guys, we're going to be taking a look at the RX 480. Welcome to this review. Let's get right into it. Hey guys, Truth here today, welcome to another video. Now today, guys, we're going to be taking a look at the RX 480, which is a fantastic video card. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. But I'd like to say first that I've been stumbling over my words. This is my 12th time trying to make this video, and well, each time I make it, it's like 14 minutes, so I've kind of been doing this for like 4 hours. How pathetic, I know. But I'm gonna try to go really slow so I don't say stuff wrong in this video. So yeah, let's hop right into it. Now, this is the first video card from AMD that's using the Polaris architecture, and yeah, this is just something really exciting to see because it's using the new 14nm FinFET process, which is a lot different than what they've been doing in the past with the 28nm FinFET process. Half the size of the transistors in this card, which is fantastic to see. I'm gonna have all the specs, all the tech specs on the screen, like the architecture, the shaders, the compute amount, the compute units, all that kind of good stuff on the screen right now, the clock speed, all that stuff, so you can see it and, I don't know, analyze it, take what you wilt from it, and I don't know. There it is. So pause the video right now. I'm going to stay silent for like 5 seconds so you can pause it and look at it or do whatever the fuck you want to do with it. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and go forward. So the RX 480 has two different models. The 199 edition, which is coming in at only 4GB of VRAM, and then the $230 edition, which is coming in with 8GB of VRAM, which is the one I actually recommend. I recommend going ahead and saving that $31 more and getting that 8GB model, just because of the fact that you're going to get more power out of the card. And that has to do with the fact that when you're using 8GB of VRAM, you're going to be limited in the power because it's going to be a huge bottleneck on that card. Not huge, but it's going to be a bottleneck on the card because in games like Grand Theft Auto 5, Witcher 3, probably in the new Watch Dogs 2, these games are massive open world games and use a lot of VRAM. So when you go over that 8GB VRAM amount, then you run into problems because you're going to be bottlenecked by that. So that's why I recommend going with the 8GB edition, and that's just because of the fact that you're not going to be bottlenecked and you're going to get the actual performance of the entire GPU, not just be limited by the amount of VRAM you have. Now, this is GDDR5 memory, which I'm actually kind of disappointed because I was hoping we'd see GDDR5X, which is, you know, a step backwards, but at the same time, I understand for the price, you can't really complain. Now, this video card is fantastic. That's all I have to say. It is a fantastic video card. It's got 4 different connectors. It's got 3 different display ports, which is the 1.4 edition, which means that it can support up to 8K at 60 Hz, which is, well, crazy to be completely honest. And you're not going to ever be releasing that card at 8K. We don't even have those kind of monitors yet, but yeah, okay, that's really crazy. It's nice to see that they're really future-proofing this card. And yeah, to put that in perspective, 8K is 4 times the amount of pixels as 4K, which is just fucking crazy. And then I think it's 16 times the amount of pixels as 1080p. So yeah, you're not going to be running that card. You're using 16 the amount of power. So when we take a look at the 1080p benchmarks, you can say multiply that times 16. That is, or divide that by 16. That's how many frames per second you get. Like, what would you call that? In theory. In theory, that's how many frames you'd get. So this card has then a HDMI 2.0B, which means that it can support up to 4K at 60 Hz. So yeah, definitely another piece of hardware that is fantastic to see that kind of port in there. So yeah, now they got a couple features on this card. One of my favorite features is the frame rate target control, which means that you'll be able to decide what frame rate you want to limit it at. So say you have a 1080p 60 Hz monitor, then you say, okay, on CSGO, I'm running at 200 frames per second, which means that you're drowning more power, it's going to be louder, and it's going to be hotter. So you can say, okay, I only want it at 60 Hz because at 60 frames per second because I only have 60 Hz monitor. Okay, so then you're going to be running at 60 frames per second without going over, which is fantastic. And yeah, even though I recommend you actually setting to like 70 if you got a 60 hertz monitor, you know, same thing with doing 20 hertz. I recommend setting it to like maybe like 130, 140, just because then you're never gonna dip below the hertz. When you see in like CSGO, maybe you'll dip like to 59. So just like, I don't know, that's something they might want to think about. Anyway, this card really is a piece of art. Now also, it's got this crazy amazing software. The Crimson software has gone really far. I love the modern design on the software, and it's really got a ton of other features through it. You can overclock right through the Ration software, which is fantastic to see because you can't do that with NVIDIA's GeForce software, and it's just fantastic to see that out of the card. You can do overclocks for certain games, so you can set overclocks to specific games, which is fantastic to see. Again, I say fantastic way too much, guys. I'm really sorry, but yeah, I saw a comment in one of my videos that said drinking game every time. It says amazing, so yeah. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, just a great piece of software. It's really come a long way, and I definitely would say that it's better than the GeForce Experience software. I was hoping that we'd see one more feature, which is something like Shadow Play, where you can record right with your GPU, which would be fantastic for free. I'm hoping we would see that because I actually find that Shadow Play records better than a lot of other softwares that's just for that. You know, some like softwares like Fraps and stuff like that. I find that it actually records better and it's higher quality, but maybe that's just me. So yeah, guys, some great software coming with this card, and yeah. So let's move on to the benchmarks. So starting off with Witcher 3, you can see at 1440p on ultra setting with no hairworks, you can see that the card's getting about 40 frames per second, which is fantastic, with the GTX 970 coming in at about the same. I think it's like 0.4 is the difference between the 8GB edition and the GTX 970, which is a great thing to see. And then you can see that the GTX 1070 is coming at 60 frames per second, so obviously it's still getting crushed by the 1070. So yeah, we were hoping that, I don't even know what people actually thought that they'd be able to perform as good as the 1070, which is just crazy. I think some people said that they'd be getting performance around the 980 range. So yeah, you're going to be getting performance around the 970. So yeah, great performance. And not exactly the best for 1440p, especially when you take into account that the 1440p monitor they'd be using is probably going to cost more than the GPU. Just keep that in mind. So for the 1080p result for Witcher 3, you can see on ultra quality and no hairworks, you can see you're getting about 50 frames per second. And you can see that the GeForce GTX 970 is getting about 52 frames per second. So yeah, you're getting great performance, definitely playable, and it's just below the 970, which is fantastic to see out of a card that costs about $100 to $120 less than the GTX 970. So fantastic to see, obviously. Now, next up we got the Division. So the Division running at 1440p on ultra quality. You can see that it's running at 40 frames per second. Now, obviously, you can drop the settings a little bit, maybe put in like medium or something like that, and then you have a better frame rate, I guess I'd say. But at that point, you know, you're spending more money on the monitor than your actual GPU, and that's silly, honestly. That's silly. You should spend more money on their GPU at always, and maybe say you're getting a $300 monitor with a 1440p display, right? Then, well, at that point, you might as well take that $150 out of that $300 budget for the monitor, buy a reasonably 1080p, maybe 60 hertz monitor, and then put that money towards maybe like a GTX 1070. That'd be more future proofing. Just that's what I say. And then like get maybe a cheap like $80 monitor that you can play games on for a little while, and then save up to get a new monitor. Just because of the fact that at that point you're not gonna be able to play crazy games at 1440p. And I would recommend just going ahead and getting a better GPU and then saving up for a better quality monitor. Just what I would have in mind. But maybe you guys have something different that you'd want to do. Now, looking at the Division at 1920 by 1080 at ultra settings, you can see that it's getting roughly 60 frames per second. And what this means is that this is a DirectX 12 game, and it's getting 4 frames per second more than the GTX 970, which means that this card is actually a lot better at DirectX 12, which is fantastic to see because that is the future, obviously. And we've known for a while that NVIDIA has been really just destroying the DirectX 12 compatibility and just performance ratios. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like they've really been focusing on the DirectX 12, which means that the AMD cards have really exceeded them in the DirectX 12 performance, which is fantastic to see because DirectX 12 is obviously the future, and that's what everybody now is developing in. So, NVIDIA, bring up your fucking game, honestly. So, next up, let's take a look at Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, this is running at 1440p at very high quality, and as you can see, you're getting about 30 frames per second. Now, this is average, so definitely not really playable in my opinion because you're going to dip pretty low, especially when driving through the city and stuff like that. So yeah, this is a game where having that extra VRAM would actually be a huge positive, in my opinion, at least, just even like for the future. Because as you can see, you're getting 2 more frames, which doesn't sound like a lot, but at the same time, for future games, that could be a huge difference between these 2 cards. Because this is the kind of game that would overpass that 4 GB. And keep in mind, this is an older game. This is like a 3-year-old game, right? So newer games are gonna be more hard on your VRAM. So yeah, definitely something to think about getting that 8 GB edition. So yeah, it's still less than the 970 on this card, but you know, what do you expect? This is again a DirectX 11 game, not a DirectX 12 game. Now looking at Grand Theft Auto 5 on 1080p, you can see that it's running at 50 frames per second ish, so definitely playable at 1080p. This is what I recommend actually going for. I recommend going for a RX 480 with 1080p display, just because this is the best card for 1080p gaming in my opinion at this point. It's really just destroying any of the previous cards. As you can see, you can see the AMD Radeon R9 380, which is only getting about 35 frames per second. It's definitely a huge amount of increase, about 40% increase, which is crazy to see out of this card, and it's fantastic to see, obviously. So moving on past the benchmarks, what I have to say is that this card is a fantastic card to see. Definitely because of the fact that it's coming in at only $200 when it's comparable to the GTX 970, which is about $300. So definitely something to think about going and getting at this point, especially when you're spending maybe $600 to $800 on a build. I can really see this as maybe not even $800, maybe like, I'd say maybe like 500 to I don't know, something like in the ballpark of like 750, 700. I say that this is an amazing card to go pick up. Now, if you're on the edge between getting this and maybe the, I don't even know, there's not really any other cards between the GTX 970 and the Radeon RX 480. And this card is just amazing. There's tons and tons of features. One thing I'm really excited about is the fact that, first of all, it does have a blowing cooling system, but second of all, the actual board itself is extremely small, which means that in the future we might be seeing some custom cooling systems that are extremely smaller than the card right now, which means that we might be able to see these in some really small cases, which is fantastic to see. And I hope we get to see some of that in the future. So, guys, for this card, I'd like to say that this is the new king of 1080p gaming. It's getting some amazing performance out of 1080p. Definitely a better deal than getting, say, the GTX 970. And I bet a lot of people that are using the GTX 970 right now and just bought it are really trying to kick themselves right now because they could have saved $150, $100 on this card, especially if you get it on a deal. So yeah, definitely worth going ahead and picking up this card instead of the GTX 1070. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.